Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hello everyone, this is Carrie Brown and Jonathan Bailor, and this is the SANE Show.
The SANE Show. And today, Carrie, we are going to talk about something that is literally the most important component when we talk about SANE in the most literal sense: satiety, aggression, nutrition, and efficiency. The single most important component of going sane. So that makes me excited.
I know the answer.
What is it, Carrie?
Vegetables.
Yes, and specifically green vegetables.
Yum.
Green vegetables!
Yum!
But the inspiration for today's show is one of everyone's favorite Muppets, our dear Kermit the Frog. Do you want to know?
You lost me now. Okay, I kind of get the green connection, but
It is because Kermit is green, because we all remember Kermit's words of wisdom, which apply, which is, it's not easy being green. Kermit has told us for decades, it's not easy being green. And what I want to do in today's show is help people make it easier to be green, specifically easier to consume more green, non-starchy vegetables. Pow!
that was a brilliant segue.
Was it? Thank you.
Congratulations.
I feel like I've from a segue perspective, that was a pretty good one. I'm gonna be honest. I try to be a little bit humble on these shows, but I feel like that was a pretty good segue.
It is so hot in the studio. I'm surprised that your brain hasn't melted and that you can still do this.
Yeah, so please forgive if we're a little bit slap happy in this episode, folks.
We're delirious.
We are batch recording a few episodes, and this is the last one we'll be recording in our studio time for today, and it is getting progressively hotter. So we'll see how it goes. But part of driving up the hotness in your life is eating a lot of sane, non-starchy vegetables. So Carrie, I know we've had a bunch of shows where we've talked about your wonderfully documented tips around soups and smoothies. So I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on those tips because, folks, if you haven't already, Carrie's written entire books on how using soups and smoothies, you can literally just take care of your 10 plus servings of non-starchy vegetables, especially the green ones, quickly, easy, and deliciously. So let's maybe summarize soups and smoothies, and let's talk about some other tips. How about that?
Okay.
All right, so let's summarize soups and smoothies. And this is going to break your heart, Carrie, because I know you don't like to do anything formulaically. But if you had to give general guidance around creating soups using vegetables, is there any kind of assembler related guidance you could give us to inspire us to experiment with creating delicious vegetable heavy soups in addition to buying your book? I don't remember the title. Sorry. Tell me what the title is.
Eat Smarter Soups. My
there
books are called Eat Smarter.
All right. So give us kind of a summary tip.
Good stock, vegetables, and a Vitamix.
Beautiful. I love that. And I will give one tip in addition to that, when you say good, this is implied in good stock. But if you're going to buy your stock from the store, no MSG.
Right.
No, and be very careful because Costco, I apologize, I'm going to throw you under the bus here a little bit, but I have Costco love, so I just got to tell it like it is. Costco sells a stock. And in that stock, it says no MSG added. And so Mr. Sane here, it's like, oh, great, I'm going to buy that. Cool, awesome. No MSG added. No MSG added is not the same as no MSG, right? So then I looked carefully at the label, and it has MSG in it. Just no MSG added. So anyway, took the stuff back to Costco. They gave me my money back. Yay. But anyway, be very careful. Good stock. What were the other things?
Vegetables.
Details. And then what was the last one?
Vitamix.
All right.
Or, a high-powered blender. I mean, the Vitamix is what Jonathan and I use just because we love it. But our high-powered blender, because that will transform the texture, and a lot of people have texture issues with vegetables. So a high-powered blender will make it super silky smooth, and then if you use the right vegetables, I don't want to say starchy, but these starchier, so your carrots or your cauliflowers, if you blend them in a high-power blender long enough, you get a creamy base like a cream.
Yeah.
That's the texture you can get, which makes pretty much anything edible in my mind.
It absolutely does. And one tip I've noticed is that in terms of getting sane sources of creamy goodness is using coconut in the concoction as well. It gives you a wonderful creaminess and, interestingly enough, coconut. So the reason MSG is so palatable, let's say, is it is think of MSG, which is horrible for you, by the way, as being MSG is to the flavor umami. So there's different flavors, right? So umami is like meaty or savory. So it's kind of hard to think of. MSG is to the savory flavor as sugar is to the sweet flavor. So it just like super stimulates your brain. But there are natural sources of the chemical components which are artificially replicated in MSG that give you this umami savory flavor. Coconut is one of the highest concentrated sources. So this is why, for example, if you have a curry sauce or any sauce that's coconut based, you'll notice it's incredibly rich and decadent. That's because it's having some of those same effects on your brain, except without all the negative consequences as an MSG would. So anyway, that's soups. Smoothies are soup's friendly cousin because in some ways they are just cold soups or sweeter soups, right?
Right. So
I know I've got my formula that I use for smoothies sometimes, but do you have anything that's a little bit more formulaic?
So vegetables, Vitamix.
Vitamix is common denominator.
And a liquid, so that would be, instead of stock, that would be either water or coconut milk or almond milk.
And for me, and I'm going to say, just, you know, I try to give folks as many options as possible, but I've tried 3 very expensive blenders in my life. I've tried Waring, or is that, or that. I've tried a Breville, whatever. Tried Blendtec, and I've tried Vitamix. I'm not paid by Vitamix, nothing like that. There's no comparison. Like the Blendtec, I broke the first day. I make meatloaf, so I literally blend liver. I don't drink. I'm not gonna hold on. Let me finish, Judgy McJudgerson. So liver to me is foul because I don't know how to prepare it properly. However, when I blend it with grass-fed beef and make it like a meatloaf of sorts, it is quite delicious because I put seasonings and I put garlic and I put onions and it's fabulous. And then I put pasta sauce, all natural marinade. I digress. Point is, try to do that at Blendtec, like it end. Vitamix crushed it. I think a Vitamix is required for proper smoothie consumption. When I say proper, I literally, it's not cheap, but it's the difference between trying to travel across the country in a car and in an airplane. Like they're both modes of transportation, but they're really not comparable. So if before you say smoothies, soups, if you haven't tried doing it in a Vitamix, again, either Carrie or I are on their payroll, try it. It's worth it, and it will transform your consumption of vegetables. And my formula includes Vitamix as well. What I would say is pick a green leafy vegetable, such as a spinach or a romaine lettuce or a kale. If you're just getting started, stick with spinach and romaine because kale is going to be uniquely bitter. Then, so as much of that as possible, then either strawberries or oranges, so citrus or a low sugar berry, and only as much as you need. Generally not both, one or the other. Definitely not apples, bananas, or grapes. So the citrus or the berries is going to cut the bitterness of the vegetables. And then if you'd like, throw in some vanilla flavored protein powder and cinnamon.
And if you want a super fantastic milkshake, smooth, creamy texture, half an avocado.
Yes. So that is also, I didn't believe that or understand that until I actually did it. And you will be shocked at what an avocado does. And it also makes it more of a, I would think of smoothies almost in two ways. I would think of one smoothie as how you get your vegetables. So say you just want to have some eggs for breakfast. You're like, well, that's not a sane meal because I've got no non-starchy vegetables. So in that case, you've already got your fat and you got your protein because you ate a bunch of eggs. In that case, maybe you just have a spinach, strawberry, and cinnamon shake because you just want to get 3 servings of vegetables in a glass. Done. Check. Alternatively, you could use a smoothie as your entire breakfast. But if you're going to use a smoothie as your entire breakfast, you want to make sure it's a complete sane meal.
Right.
So just eating spinach for breakfast, not a complete sane meal. Just eating an avocado for breakfast, not a complete sane meal. Just eating protein powder for breakfast, definitely not a sane meal. However, put it all together and you've got a complete sane meal. And you'll notice it's exceptionally filling because if you're using like a coconut milk or if you're using an avocado, that is going to greatly increase the amount of calories, which is okay, of course. It's just going to fill you up more. But then you're looking more as this smoothie is a meal versus this smoothie is your source of vegetables in addition to something else.
And if you need more guidance or you want the starting points in terms of quantities of this and that, I wrote a book on that as well.
Boom, there's a book for that.
Eat Smarter Smoothies and Sides has a whole bunch of smoothie recipes in to help you get started.
Absolutely, highly recommended. In fact, my favorite part of that book is without question the first couple pages because that just whoever, I'm just kidding, I wrote the forward for the book. It's hot in the room. We're getting a little delusional. All right. Other things that we have not mentioned on the show previously, Carrie. So one thing I've been doing recently that I have very much enjoyed is as follows. All right. Are you ready?
I'm not sure.
All right. Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts, the much maligned vegetables, almost like lima beans.
Love Brussels sprouts. I think Brussels sprouts are awesome.
I actually think we should always record in this heat because I just used the word maligned, I think, correctly in a sentence.
Yes,
so
exactly.
All right.
Good job.
So we're going here. So much maligned vegetable, Brussels sprouts, but fabulously good for you. It is a green leafy vegetable.
They're mini cabbages.
Mini cabbages, my favorite form of cabbage. So what you do is you take Brussels sprouts. This is what I've done. You take Brussels sprouts, you boil them, not to the point where they're totally, not to the point of mush, but even earlier than that. So like say you were to just boil Brussels sprouts and eat them. So 2 minutes less than that. So you get them till they're not quite ready. Then you take them and you put them in a food processor, not a Vitamix. If you put them in a Vitamix, you get Brussels sprout mush.
Great Brussels sprouts.
Yes. So you put them in a food processor and you turn them into much more of a rice-like consistency. Then you put them in a pan when you're getting ready to eat. Put a little bit of coconut oil on the pan, put a little bit of bacon grease, put a little bit of a healthy saturated cooking fat, a little bit, some salt, some seasoning. Holy moly. And you cook them just until they're warm.
Finished.
Oh, it's like hash brown kind. I mean, it is like you can eat them. I've eaten them with eggs. I've eaten them with salmon. I've eaten them with beef. And I put it on the fork along with the protein and it just complements and it's just like, so good.
I love how excited you get about Brussels sprouts.
Well, but that's because
the world needs to get excited about Brussels sprouts because Brussels sprouts are fantastic.
And they should no longer be maligned.
Exactly.
All right. So I've shared a tip that I use to make non-starchy, to make it easier to be green. Are there some tips that you could share, Carrie? Besides soups and smoothies?
I think a couple of things that are, and if you've looked at any of the paleo sites and the kind of clean eating sites, they're there too. But two of the things that people miss most, apart from potatoes, is rice and spaghetti, so pasta. So I can't believe I just said pasta. Pasta. So you can use cauliflower to make a rice substitute, and actually when you've riced cauliflower and sauteed it for a few minutes, you'd be hard pressed to tell it from rice. It looks the same, and when you pour your meat sauce or whatever over the top of it, you can't tell the difference. Also can make a great risotto. And then the other thing is spiralizing or julienning courgettes, zucchinis, to make what looks like noodles.
Carrie was just making a sign with her hands. The listeners cannot see what you're doing with your hands.
Yeah.
But I love that. Zoodles. Yeah, I love zoodles.
So those are two ways of, as well as getting a lot of vegetables inside you, it's replacing that kind of that mental craving for starches in a way that doesn't do you the harm that eating the starch would.
Mm-hmm. And when you talked about mashed or riced cauliflower, it reminded me of a tip you provided in an earlier show, Carrie, which is I've gotten some flack for my stance on oil and butter because some people think I am opposed to it. I'm not. I believe it should be used in the right context, though. And I think the perfect, I'm going to blow the microphone out with my P's, perfect context for using butter is with one of Carrie's compound butter recipes. So you get your butter, you get your garlic, for example, or you get some dill, or you get something else. You put that in your mashed cauliflower. You put that with really like anything. So this is personally why I'm not going to put a huge amount of added fats on my food. Like I would never put butter on top of a steak for me because the steak is sufficiently rich for me. Would I like to put some compound butter on top of some broccoli? Absolutely. Would your kids eat broccoli if you put some compound butter on it? More than likely, yes. Would they eat kale if you sauteed it in bacon fat? More than likely, yes. So I think using these traditionally what would be thought of as less sane fats in conjunction with the sanest substance in the world, non-starchy vegetables, can make the super sane substance really palatable and delicious.
Right. You can get a ton of vegetables in you that would have been unpalatable without it. So
exactly.
By using a compound, by compound we mean something that's flavored essentially. By using a compound butter or by using some coconut oil or another fat like that or bacon grease, you can get vegetables inside of you that wouldn't have got there any other way. So they're a great vehicle.
Yes. Vehicle. It's a vegetable delivery mechanism.
Yes. There we go.
All right. Another tip, Carrie, something that I've been experiencing, and this gets back to, there was, excuse me, I don't know when the show will air, but Dr. Oz has certainly been in the news a lot recently. And a couple years back, he actually wrote an article for, I think, Time Magazine, which I actually found to be delightful. And it was an article about how nutritious eating is not just for the 1%, right? Sometimes it's presented like, oh, you have to shop at Whole Foods, and he's like, nonsense, right? Like you can get canned options, which are great. And are they as good as, is it as good to get powdered eggs as it is to go out to your roost thing in your backyard and get them yourself? No, of course it's not. But you know what? Progress versus perfection. Anyway, one of the things Dr. Oz talked about in the article was canned vegetables. And recently, at least my local Costco has started to carry organic canned sliced mushrooms. Now,
mushrooms.
I love mushrooms, but
too.
The challenge I face with mushrooms personally is when I buy fresh mushrooms and I cut them up and I cook them, like they shrink dramatically. And I have been known to buy one of the just big things of fresh mushrooms at Costco and eat it in a sitting after cooking it. But if you get the canned mushrooms, they're already shrunk down a little bit. I take the canned mushrooms. You don't even need to use a can opener. You just pop the top. They're organic. You dump them in a colander. I rinse them with water to try to get any of the not so good stuff that may have come off with the can on them. And then I use them like you would conventionally use noodles, for example. So I make like a ground beef with some other organ meats because I'm trying to be super sane, but you could just use a grass-fed ground meat. And instead of putting that over top of noodles, I would just mix it with these mushrooms because they just add substance and they take on the flavor of whatever you put them in. So I think another way to use vegetables that most people don't automatically think about is, so for example, instead of using, when you would traditionally use starch just as a filler and a way to get sauce, more sauce in your body. So you could use mushrooms, you could use spaghetti squash, you could use zoodles in Italian dishes. If you were to go to a Thai restaurant, instead of getting your curry over top of rice, you could get it over top of mixed vegetables. So just thinking of, this is why I'm so anti-starch, because eating is a zero-sum game. And if you're eating a bunch of mashed potatoes, you are by definition not eating something else, and that something else is almost always vegetables. So why not just load up on the vegetables? And an easy way to do that is to use them in place of these starches. And for example, canned mushrooms for me in conjunction with a Italian-based meat dish, very delicious. What do you think about that, Carrie?
I'm just stunned. You're coming up with all these ideas.
Well, I've been experimenting. My in-laws came into town recently, and I did all of the cooking. They were pleased. So I'm pretty impressed. If I don't say so myself, Carrie, I was upping my game a little bit.
I'll have to ask Angela what she thought.
All right, Carrie. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to, you are the chef. You are the SANE chef expert. So if you had to pass on one word of wisdom regarding making it easier to be green to our listeners, to help them with their sanity, what would that word of wisdom be? No pressure.
I'm going to reiterate that soups and smoothies are the easiest way to get the maximum of vegetables inside you deliciously. They just are. Because once a vegetable is liquidized, you can eat far more of it than when it's whole. So while the zoodles and the all the other things that we've talked about is fantastic, for maximum consumption, anything that liquidizes them is going to be the best way.
And I will plus one that absolutely I get, dare I say, 80% of the vegetables I consume in smoothie form. And I will leave you, dear listeners, with one tip that I have found recently, and this is a little bit more advanced, but it's been very helpful for me. The only challenge some people face with smoothies is because you are taking in so many vegetables and because you can do it so quickly, if you're not careful, it could sometimes cause a little bit of digestive issues because you can consume potentially more fiber than you've ever consumed in a week in 30 seconds if you just pound the smoothie. So 2 tips. One is don't pound, like just don't be like, glug, 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 your green smoothie. Drink it more slowly. And if you still experience any sort of flatulence or digestive distress, buy some undistilled apple cider vinegar. You can buy it online in bulk. You can buy it at your local grocery store. Bragg is a very common brand. Buy some undistilled apple cider vinegar. You'll know it is the right kind because it has what's called the mother at the bottom of the jar. It'll look like apple cider, and it will have a milky gunk at the bottom. Put some of that in the smoothie as well. I personally think it enhances the taste, and it will actually aid with digestion, which is useful.
It's a great, not to be too graphic, but apple cider vinegar is a great way to stop diarrhea in its tracks.
Yeah. So literally, for what it's worth, I buy gallon jugs of apple cider vinegar off of Amazon, and every time I drink a green smoothie, I put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in it, and it has transformed my life.
However, be aware that when you first start eating vegetables, you're probably going to have a reaction.
Yes.
That will improve dramatically over time. When your gut becomes used to that, it will go away. So don't, just hang in there and hang on until your body has time to acclimate to the new form of food that's coming through you, don't give up immediately. Give it some time. It might be a bit unpleasant to start with, but that you will get over that.
And then you will, Carrie.
And you will no longer have to sleep on the couch.
And then you will prove Kermit wrong. And you will, with the tips that we have outlined today, show that it can be easy.
Good to be green.
It can be easy to be green. I love it, Carrie. Well, listeners, this week and every week after, remember, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. We'll chat with you soon.
See ya.
Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's Bailor group.com.